Waitress spent her last $8 helping a Hell's Angel. Next day, 100 bikers brought a life-changing gift. But when her dark past surfaced, everyone was left speechless and... Subscribe now, or this might be our last meeting. Follow, comment, and share to stay connected. Don't miss out. Let's dive in. The neon sign of the Dusty Road Diner flickered against the November darkness, casting red and blue shadows across the empty highway. Renata Reyes wiped down the last table, her movements automatic after 3 years of this routine. The clock above the register read 11:47 p.m. Through the frost-covered windows, abandoned cars dotted the desert highway like scattered toys. The wind howled, a lonely sound that matched the hollow feeling in her chest she'd learned to ignore. She counted the bills in the register drawer, $43 for the entire night. Her hands trembled slightly as she separated $8 for herself, enough for antibiotics Martha needed if she skipped breakfast tomorrow. The roar of a motorcycle engine shattered the silence. Renata looked up, watching headlights weave dangerously across the center line. The sound grew louder, closer, then terminated in a sickening crunch of metal against asphalt. The diner's front window rattled. She dropped the dishcloth and ran outside, the cold desert air hitting her face like a slap. 20 feet from the entrance, a man lay motionless beside his fallen motorcycle. Blood pooled beneath his leather jacket, dark and spreading. "Someone call 911!" Renata shouted toward the diner. Inside, the 3 remaining customers stared through the glass. Nobody moved. Her heart hammered as she knelt beside the stranger. His breathing came in shallow, desperate gasps. A deep gash across his forehead poured blood, and his left arm bent at an unnatural angle. "Can you hear me?" She pressed her apron against the head wound, applying pressure the way her father had taught her before he died. "Stay with me." The man's eyes fluttered open, gray, unfocused, filled with pain. "Don't tell them." His voice barely registered above the wind. "Tell who?" Renata checked his pulse, fast but steady. "You need a hospital." "No hospitals." He tried to sit up and collapsed back with a groan. "Please." She recognized desperation when she heard it. 3 years ago, she'd begged the same thing in a police station, knowing the system wouldn't save her. "Okay," she said quietly. "No hospitals. But I need to stop this bleeding." Renata ran back inside, ignoring the customers who suddenly found their coffee cups fascinating. She grabbed clean towels from the kitchen, the first aid kit from behind the counter, and the bottle of cheap vodka Jerry kept under the sink. Her hands moved with practiced efficiency, cleaning the wound, wrapping the arm, using strips of apron to create a makeshift splint. The man drifted in and out of consciousness, mumbling words she couldn't understand. The pharmacy next door had closed at 11, but Renata knew old Mr. Chen lived in the apartment above it. She glanced at the $8 in her apron pocket. It was enough for Martha's antibiotics. It was also enough for this stranger's survival. She made her choice in less than 3 seconds. 20 minutes later, she'd convinced Mr. Chen to sell her a bottle of strong antibiotics and antiseptic cream. The $8 disappeared from her hand, replaced by 2 small packages that might mean the difference between infection and recovery. Back at the diner, she administered the first dose and cleaned the wounds properly. The man's breathing steadied. Color returned to his face. Renata pulled a blanket from her car and covered him, then dragged the damaged motorcycle out of the road. Her muscles burned with the effort, but she couldn't leave it there for highway patrol to find. She sat on the diner steps until dawn, watching his chest rise and fall. The desert grew quiet again. Stars faded into pale morning light. At 6:13 a.m., the man's eyes opened, clear this time, aware. He stared at her for a long moment, then slowly sat up. Without a word, he removed his leather vest, black with an embroidered patch, showing a skull wreathed in silver flames. Beneath it, the words, Iron Saints MC, curved in Gothic letters. "You'll need this," he said, his voice rough but grateful. He laid the vest on the step beside her. "Someone will come." Before Renata could respond, he limped to his motorcycle, somehow started the damaged engine, and disappeared down the highway as the sun broke over the horizon. She picked up the vest, running her fingers over the worn leather. The weight of it felt significant, though she didn't understand why. Inside the diner, the morning shift was arriving. Life continued as if nothing had happened. Renata folded the vest carefully and tucked it under the counter, next to the spare aprons and forgotten umbrellas. She had no idea what it meant, no idea what was coming. The anonymous waitress went back to pouring coffee, unaware that her $8 act of compassion had just changed everything. The asphalt trembled the next morning with a sound like distant thunder. Renata was refilling the coffee station when Sarah grabbed her arm. "Look outside." Through the window, the highway had transformed. Motorcycles lined both sides of the road, dozens of them, maybe more. Chrome gleamed in the November sunlight. Leather-clad riders stood in precise formation, silent and waiting. Her breath caught. "Oh my God," Sarah whispered. "Are they robbing us?" The roar of engines grew louder as more bikes arrived, filling the parking lot in disciplined rows. Renata counted quickly. 50, 70, 100. At the center of the formation, a man dismounted from a black Harley that looked like it cost more than the diner itself. He was tall, at least 6'3", with dark hair and a presence that made the other riders seem to fade into background. He removed his helmet and surveyed the diner with an expression that was impossible to read. Renata's heart hammered. The vest. She'd forgotten about the vest. The man walked toward the entrance with measured steps. The other riders didn't follow, but their attention tracked his every movement like a military unit awaiting orders. The bell above the door chimed, a cheerful sound that felt absurdly out of place. "Who helped one of mine?" His voice carried authority without raising volume. Everyone in the diner froze. Even Jerry stopped pretending to clean the grill. Renata raised her hand slowly, unsure if she was confessing or defending herself. "I did." The man turned to look at her fully for the first time. His eyes were steel gray, intense but not unkind. He studied her with an attention that made her want to step back and stand straighter simultaneously. "You're the one who saved Marcus." It wasn't a question, but she nodded anyway. He walked closer, stopping at a respectful distance. Up close, she noticed details: the expensive watch beneath his leather jacket, the tailored fit of his jeans, the way he held himself like someone accustomed to boardrooms as much as highways. "I'm Liam Donovan," he said. "Marcus is my brother. You spent your last money keeping him alive." Renata blinked. How did he know that? "Mr. Chen talks," Liam continued, reading her expression. "Small towns, smaller secrets." He reached into his jacket and pulled out an envelope. The thickness of it suggested more cash than she'd seen in months. "This is for you. Medical expenses, lost wages, and—" "No." The word came out firmer than she'd intended. Liam's eyebrows rose slightly. Around them, the diner had gone completely silent. "No," he repeated. "I didn't help him for money." Renata met his gaze directly, ignoring the way her pulse raced. "You can't buy compassion." Something shifted in his expression. Surprise, maybe respect. He studied her with renewed interest, and she had the uncomfortable feeling he was seeing past the faded uniform and tired eyes to something she'd worked hard to hide. "You speak well for a—" He paused. "For someone working here." The unspoken question hung between them. "For a waitress?" Renata supplied, her voice steady despite the familiar shame rising in her throat. "I had a different life once. This is what I do now." Liam nodded slowly, but didn't push. He tucked the envelope back inside his jacket. "Then let me buy breakfast for my crew. All of them." Renata calculated quickly. 100 riders. Average order $15. $1,500 in a single morning. "That I can do," she said. A hint of a smile touched his mouth. "Fair enough." He turned to leave, then stopped. "You didn't ask questions last night. You just helped. That matters more than you know. Your brother asked me not to call anyone. I figured he had his reasons." "He did." Liam's expression darkened briefly. "Not all help comes from official channels. Sometimes the system fails the people who need it most." The words hit closer than he could have known. Renata felt her carefully constructed walls crack slightly. "I understand that better than you think," she said quietly. Their eyes met again, and this time the connection lasted several heartbeats too long. She noticed the way his jaw tightened, the slight tilt of his head as if reconsidering everything he'd assumed about her. "I think you do," he said finally. He walked outside and raised one hand. The formation of riders moved as one, filing into the diner in organized groups. They were polite, surprisingly quiet, and left tips that exceeded their bills. Renata worked steadily through the orders, but her attention kept drifting to the man by the window. Liam Donovan sat alone, drinking black coffee and watching her with an intensity that made her simultaneously nervous and seen. When the last rider left 3 hours later, the register was fuller than it had been in months. Jerry actually smiled, but Renata barely noticed the money. She was too busy thinking about the way Liam had looked at her, like she was a puzzle he intended to solve. As the final motorcycle roared away down the highway, she realized she'd forgotten to be invisible. And something about that both terrified and thrilled her. The television above the diner counter had been playing background noise for hours. News, weather, commercials Renata barely registered anymore. But at 2:47 p.m., a voice from her past cut through the familiar static like a knife. Philanthropist Sebastian Cole announces major expansion of educational grants. Her hands froze mid-pour. Hot coffee splashed across the counter, burning her wrist. She didn't feel it. On the screen, Sebastian stood behind a podium in an impeccable navy suit, his smile practiced and warm. The same smile he'd used 3 years ago when he'd promised to handle the paperwork. The same smile that had destroyed her entire life. The Cole and Donovan Foundation is committed to providing opportunities for underprivileged youth, Sebastian continued, gesturing to charts showing donation numbers. We believe everyone deserves a second chance. The irony burned worse than the coffee. Renata grabbed a towel, her movements mechanical. Around her, customers ate their lunches, oblivious to the fact that her world had just tilted sideways. Cole and Donovan. The name registered slowly, like puzzle pieces connecting in her mind. Liam Donovan. The foundation Sebastian had built his empire on was connected to the man who'd sat in this diner 3 hours ago. Her stomach dropped. You okay, hun? Sarah touched her shoulder. You look like you've seen a ghost. I'm fine. The lie came automatically. Just clumsy today. But she wasn't fine. She watched Sebastian shake hands with city officials, watched reporters lean forward to catch his words, watched the world celebrate a man who'd stolen everything from her, her career, her reputation, her future. He'd taken her research on corporate fraud detection, published it under his name, then framed her for the very crimes her work had been designed to prevent. By the time she understood what was happening, bank accounts had been frozen, credentials revoked, criminal charges filed. She'd run before the trial. It was either run or watch her mother die while lawyers bled them dry. The pen drive hidden in her suitcase weighed heavy in her thoughts. 3 years of evidence she'd collected before disappearing. Proof of Sebastian's embezzlement schemes, falsified documents, shell companies funneling foundation money into private accounts. Evidence that could destroy him. Evidence that could also get her killed. A customer called for more coffee. Renata moved through the motions, filling cups and clearing plates, while her mind raced through implications. If Liam Donovan was Sebastian's partner, then this morning's visit hadn't been gratitude. It had been reconnaissance. Her chest tightened. The news segment continued. Sebastian was discussing the Foundation's latest project, a legal aid clinic for women wrongfully accused of white-collar crimes. The audacity of it made her hands shake. The justice system fails too many people, Sebastian said earnestly into the camera. We want to be part of the solution. Renata turned away before she threw something at the television. She made it through her shift on autopilot, smiling when required, speaking when necessary, counting down minutes until she could escape to her small apartment above the laundromat. At 9:00 p.m., she locked the diner's back door and walked to her car, a 15-year-old Honda that barely ran. Her reflection in the side mirror showed a woman she barely recognized. No makeup, hair pulled back in a practical bun. The kind of invisible that kept you alive when powerful people wanted you gone. She drove the 3 blocks home in silence. The apartment was cold. Heat cost money she didn't have. Renata turned on one lamp and pulled her suitcase from under the bed. The pen drive sat in the interior pocket wrapped in a plastic bag. She held it up to the light, watching data potentially worth millions, or her life, gleam silver in her palm. For 3 years, she'd told herself keeping it was insurance. Now she wondered if it was just a ticking bomb she'd carried with her. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. Her heart stopped. She let it ring 4 times before answering. Hello? Silence. Then breathing. I know you're there, Renata. The voice wasn't Sebastian's. It was smoother, professional, the kind of voice that made threats sound like friendly advice. You have something that doesn't belong to you. Mr. Cole is willing to be generous if you return it. I don't know what you're talking about. Her voice remained steady despite the terror rising in her throat. The pen drive. The files you stole before you ran. I stole nothing. He framed me. A soft laugh. No one believes that story. You're a fugitive. He's a philanthropist. Simple math. What do you want? Cooperation. Meet tomorrow at the rest stop on Highway 50. Bring the drive. Walk away with enough money to disappear properly. And if I don't? Your mother is in Sunrise Care Facility, room 203. She looks peaceful when she sleeps. The line went dead. Renata dropped the phone. Her entire body shook. They knew about Martha. They knew everything. She grabbed the pen drive and her jacket, moving on instinct. She needed to leave. Tonight. Disappear deeper this time. Somewhere Sebastian's reach couldn't find her. As she shoved clothes into a bag, something fell from her coat pocket and clattered across the floor. Her old law license badge. The one from Columbia University, back when she'd been Renata Reyes, promising young attorney, instead of Renata, the invisible waitress. She picked it up slowly, staring at the photo. That woman had believed in justice, in systems, in truth prevailing. That woman had been naive. The badge felt heavy in her hand, a reminder of everything she'd lost and everyone she'd failed. Renata tucked it back in her pocket and returned to packing. She'd run once before. She could do it again. But as she zipped the suitcase, she realized she'd left something at the diner. The leather vest, the Iron Saints jacket Marcus had given her. She almost left it. Almost. But something made her drive back through the November cold, unlock the diner's back door, and retrieve the vest from under the counter. As she pulled it close, the weight of it felt different now. Not just leather and thread, but possibility. Maybe there were other kinds of help, other kinds of justice. She was halfway to her car when she saw him. Liam Donovan stood in the parking lot, backlit by his motorcycle's headlight. He held her law badge between two fingers. "You dropped this earlier," he said quietly. "I think we need to talk." Renata's first instinct was to run. Her second was to realize how pointless that would be. Liam's motorcycle could catch her car in seconds. She forced herself to walk calmly toward him, every muscle tense. "That's not mine. Columbia Law, class of 2019, Renata Reyes." He held the badge closer to the light. "You're a long way from Manhattan." I dropped out. The lie came smoothly. Decided legal work wasn't for me. "You dropped out." He repeated the words slowly, clearly not believing them. After graduating with honors and passing the bar exam, her stomach clenched. He'd already investigated her. "How much did Sebastian tell you?" The question escaped before she could stop it. Liam's expression shifted. "Sebastian Cole? What does he have to do with anything? Don't play games." Fatigue made her reckless. "I saw the foundation name, Cole and Donovan. You're partners. He sent you to find me." "We're business associates, not partners. And I didn't know you existed until yesterday." He stepped closer, his voice dropping. "But I'm starting to think I should have." The November wind cut through the parking lot. Renata pulled her jacket tighter, mind racing through options. She could lie better, create a more convincing story, or she could take the biggest risk of her life. "I need to leave," she said finally. "Please just let me go." "Why?" The single word held genuine curiosity. "You've been hiding here for years, working night shifts, keeping your head down. What changed?" "He knows where I am now." She hated the fear in her voice. "Which means I'm out of time." Liam studied her face in the harsh parking lot lights. "You're afraid of Sebastian." "I'm smart about Sebastian. There's a difference." "What did he do to you?" Renata laughed, the sound bitter. "He stole my research, used it to build his reputation, then framed me for crimes he committed. When I tried to fight back, he destroyed every shred of credibility I had. I ran before the trial because I knew I'd lose." She met Liam's gaze directly. "And now he wants to make sure I stay silent permanently. That's a serious accusation." "It's the truth." "Then why not go to the police?" "With what proof? My word against a celebrated philanthropist?" She shook her head. "The system doesn't work for people like me. It works for people like him." Something flickered across Liam's face. Recognition, maybe understanding. "You said yesterday that you knew about the system failing people." "I lived it." Silence stretched between them. In the distance, a semi-truck roared past on the highway. "The foundation," Liam said carefully. "Sebastian handles the legal side. I provide funding and oversight. We're not friends. But you trust him." "I trusted his credentials." He paused, past tense apparently. Renata wanted desperately to believe him, but 3 years of running had taught her that trust was a luxury she couldn't afford. "I need to go." She turned toward her car. "Wait." Liam's hand caught her arm gently. "If what you're saying is true, running won't help. He'll find you again. Maybe. But staying here definitely won't help. What if there was another option?" She pulled her arm free. "Like what?" You investigate him, he'll see you coming from miles away. He's built his entire career on staying 3 steps ahead. Then we don't investigate. Liam's voice hardened. We expose him, fast and public, before he can cover his tracks. With what evidence? I told you, it's my word against his. Is it? His gaze dropped to the vest she still held. You grabbed this before running. Why? Renata hesitated. The pen drive in her pocket felt like it was burning through the fabric. Because I'm sentimental, she said finally. You're many things. Sentimental isn't one of them. He studied her expression. You have proof. That's why he's threatening you. That's why he sent someone tonight. Her breath caught. How did you know about tonight? I didn't, but your reaction just confirmed it. He stepped closer, his voice urgent. Let me help you. Why would you? You barely know me. Because yesterday you saved my brother's life without hesitation. You spent money you needed on a stranger who asked you not to call for help. That tells me more about your character than any law degree. He paused. And because if Sebastian Cole is using my foundation to commit fraud, I want him destroyed. Renata searched his face for deception and found only barely controlled anger. It's dangerous, she said quietly. Good thing I brought 100 bikers. Despite everything, a small smile touched her lips. They're not exactly subtle. Neither is Sebastian, apparently. Liam pulled out his phone. Tell me what you need. She shouldn't trust him. Every survival instinct screamed against it, but she was so tired of running, and the look in his eyes reminded her of someone who actually kept promises. Protection for my mother, she said. If I do this, he'll go after her first. Done. What else? A lawyer. A real one, not someone who'll sell out to the highest bidder. I know several. What else? A plan that doesn't end with me in prison or dead. Liam's expression darkened. That's non-negotiable. The certainty in his voice made something in her chest loosen slightly. There's a rest stop on Highway 50, she said. His people want me there tomorrow at noon. They think I'll hand over the evidence. Will you? No, but they don't know I have backup copies. She pulled the pen drive from her pocket. This is everything. Financial records, emails, shell company documentation. 3 years of his fraud, laid out in detail. Liam took it carefully, holding it up to examine. You've been carrying this the entire time? Insurance policy, though lately it feels more like a target on my back. Not anymore. He pocketed the drive. Tomorrow at the rest stop, you won't be alone. He'll be watching. So will we. Liam's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen and his jaw tightened. Speaking of which, he showed her the message. It was a photo of the diner, taken from across the highway. The timestamp read 15 minutes ago. Renata's blood went cold. They're here. They were. They're gone now. He typed something quickly. But my people are tracking their vehicle. Your people? The Iron Saints aren't just a motorcycle club. Some of us had different careers before. He met her gaze. Sometimes the system fails people on both sides of the law. Understanding dawned. You're not just a businessman. I'm whatever I need to be to protect my own. He gestured to his bike. Right now, you're one of mine, so we're leaving. Together. I can't just abandon. Your car stays here. You stay visible at work. But nights you stay where Sebastian can't reach you. He handed her a helmet. Non-negotiable. Renata looked at the helmet, then at Liam, then at the dark highway where threats lurked in shadows. She took the helmet. This doesn't mean I trust you, she said. Good. Trust gets people killed. He swung onto the bike. But cooperation keeps them alive. She climbed on behind him and the motorcycle roared to life. As they accelerated into the November night, Renata realized she'd just made the second biggest gamble of her life. The first had been believing in justice. Maybe this time would end differently. The Grand Meridian Hotel sparkled like a jewelry box against the Las Vegas skyline. Crystal chandeliers, designer gowns, and the kind of wealth that made Renata's 3 years in the desert feel like a distant planet. She stood in the bathroom, staring at her reflection in the gilt-edged mirror. The black dress Liam had provided fit perfectly, simple, elegant, expensive. Her hair fell in soft waves instead of the practical bun. Makeup concealed the exhaustion. She looked like the woman she used to be. That terrified her more than the threats. You don't have to do this. Liam's voice came from outside the door. We can find another way. Renata opened the door. He stood in a tailored charcoal suit that made him look less like a biker and more like the millionaire he actually was. Yes, I do. She adjusted the small recording device hidden in her clutch. If we wait, he'll just dig in deeper. This is our chance. The charity gala was Sebastian's spotlight moment, his annual celebration of the Cole and Donovan Foundation's achievements. 500 guests, dozens of cameras, and an awards ceremony where he'd accept recognition for his commitment to justice. The irony still burned. The Saints are positioned at every exit, Liam said quietly. Security thinks they're additional staff. At the first sign of trouble, I know the plan. Renata met his gaze. I'm ready. She wasn't ready, but she'd learned 3 years ago that readiness was a luxury. They entered the ballroom together. Conversations flowed around them like water. Politicians, business executives, society figures who collected charity galas like trading cards. No one looked at the waitress from Nevada. They saw only what Liam wanted them to see: his guest, his protection, his statement. Sebastian stood near the stage, surrounded by admirers. He looked exactly as he had on television, polished, confident, untouchable. His laugh carried across the room, warm and practiced. Renata's hands clenched. Breathe, Liam murmured beside her. He doesn't know you're here yet. But even as he spoke, Sebastian's gaze swept the room and landed on her. His expression froze for exactly 2 seconds before the mask returned. He excused himself from his group and walked toward them with measured steps. Liam, Sebastian extended his hand. Good to see you. I wasn't expecting you tonight. Last-minute decision. Liam's handshake was brief. I wanted to bring a guest. Sebastian Cole, meet Renata Reyes. The name hung in the air like a detonation. Sebastian's smile never wavered, but his eyes went cold. Ms. Reyes. What an unexpected surprise. Mr. Cole. Her voice remained steady. It's been a long time. Indeed. He turned to Liam. I wasn't aware you two knew each other. Recent acquaintance? Liam said smoothly. Renata was telling me about her legal background. Fascinating story. I'm sure. Sebastian's attention returned to her, sharp and assessing. Though I recall your legal career ended rather abruptly, because you destroyed it. The words came out quieter than intended, but carried weight. Several nearby conversations paused. Sebastian's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. That's a serious accusation. His tone remained pleasant, but threat lurked beneath, especially coming from someone who fled criminal charges. Charges based on falsified evidence. The courts disagreed. I never made it to court. Renata stepped closer, aware of phones turning their direction. You made sure of that. Sebastian glanced around at the growing audience. This isn't the place for your delusions. Then let's make it the place for truth. She pulled a USB drive from her clutch, not the original, but a duplicate Liam had prepared. 3 years of financial records, shell companies, embezzled foundation funds, all documented. His mask cracked. You have nothing. I have everything. Her voice rose. Every fraudulent transaction you pinned on me. Every dollar you stole while pretending to help people. It's all here. The ballroom had gone silent. Cameras turned toward them. Sebastian's face flushed red. You're insane, he hissed. Security. Actually, a new voice interrupted. I'd like to see those records. A woman in a dark suit stepped forward, badge glinting at her belt. FBI. 2 more agents materialized from the crowd. Sebastian's expression transformed from anger to panic. This is harassment. She's a known fugitive. We're aware of Ms. Reyes' situation, the agent said calmly. We're also aware of several irregularities in the Cole and Donovan Foundation's financial statements. We'd like to ask you some questions. I want my lawyer. That's your right. The agent nodded to her colleagues. Sebastian Cole, you're being detained for questioning regarding financial fraud, embezzlement, and falsification of federal documents. The room erupted. Cameras flashed. Guests whispered and stared. Sebastian looked around wildly, searching for escape routes that didn't exist. His gaze landed on Renata with pure hatred. You think this changes anything? You're still a fugitive, still guilty in everyone's eyes. Then let them look closer. She held up the USB drive. Because unlike you, I'm not afraid of the truth. The agents led Sebastian toward the exit. He struggled briefly, his composure completely shattered. The man who'd destroyed her life was being walked out in handcuffs while 500 witnesses watched. It should have felt like victory. Instead, Renata's knees buckled. Liam caught her before she fell, his arms steady around her waist. I've got you. The ballroom spun. 3 years of running, hiding, surviving, all crashing down at once. Her breath came in shallow gasps. Outside, she managed. I need air. He guided her through the crowd to a terrace overlooking the glittering city. The November wind was cold, but Renata welcomed it. Anything to ground her in the present instead of the past. Is it over? She hated how small her voice sounded. Not yet. Liam's hand remained on her back, warm and anchoring. The FBI has the evidence. They'll build their case. But yes, the worst is over. Renata laughed, the sound breaking. Why doesn't it feel like winning? Because you just faced your nightmare in front of 500 people. He turned her gently to face him. You were incredibly brave. I was terrified. Bravery isn't the absence of fear. It's acting despite it. His gray eyes held hers. You did that tonight. Tears she'd held back for 3 years finally broke free. Renata pressed her face against Liam's shoulder, and he held her while she cried, for the career she'd lost, the years she'd wasted, the woman she'd had to become. When the tears finally stopped, she pulled back. I'm sorry. I got makeup all over your suit. I have others. He brushed a strand of hair from her face. Are you okay? I don't know yet. She looked out at the city lights. Ask me again tomorrow. Inside, the gala had dissolved into chaos. Tomorrow, the news would be everywhere. Sebastian's fall, her vindication, the truth finally surfacing after 3 years underwater. But tonight, on a terrace in Las Vegas, Renata just breathed. And for the first time in 3 years, the air tasted like freedom. The Starlight Motel squatted on the edge of Highway 50 like a forgotten relic, peeling paint, flickering vacancy sign, and the kind of anonymity that made it perfect for people who needed to disappear. Renata sat on the scratchy bedspread, scrolling through news alerts on her phone. Sebastian's arrest dominated headlines. Photos from the gala showed him being led away, his carefully constructed image shattering in real time. She should have felt satisfied. Instead, she felt hollow. A knock at the door made her jump. It's me. Liam's voice came through the thin wood. She opened the door. He stood with 2 coffee cups and a folder thick with documents. Thought you might need this. He handed her a cup. And we need to talk about what comes next. Renata stepped aside to let him in. The room was small enough that his presence filled it entirely. He sat in the single chair, leaving her the bed. The FBI called, he said without preamble. They want to interview you tomorrow morning. Her stomach tightened. About Sebastian. About everything. He opened the folder. Your original charges, his fraud, the evidence you collected. They're reopening your case. Which means they're considering dropping charges against you, but it's not guaranteed. His expression was serious. You'll need a good lawyer. I can't afford. Already handled. He pulled out a business card. Margaret Chen. She specializes in white-collar crime and wrongful prosecution. She's expecting your call. Renata took the card with trembling fingers. Why are you doing this? Because it's the right thing to do. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. And because I made a promise to help you. You barely know me. I know enough. His voice softened. I know you saved my brother without asking questions. I know you've been surviving on nothing for 3 years. I know you walked into that gala tonight even though you were terrified. He paused. That's all I need to know. The sincerity in his eyes made her chest ache. She wanted to believe him, wanted to trust that someone might actually keep their promises. What about the foundation? She asked. Sebastian was your partner. This affects you too, which is why I spent the last 3 hours with my lawyers. He pulled out more papers. These are financial audits going back 5 years. Sebastian diverted over $20 million into shell companies, money that was supposed to fund legal aid, education programs, community centers. Renata scanned the documents. The scope of the fraud took her breath away. He used my research to design the scheme. Your research on corporate fraud detection? Liam's jaw tightened. That's particularly twisted. He knew exactly how to hide it because I'd shown him what investigators look for. Shame colored her voice. I helped him do this. No. Liam's tone was firm. He manipulated your work. That's not the same thing. Tell that to the people who needed that $20 million. We will. He met her gaze. Because we're going to recover every cent and make sure it goes where it was supposed to. We? The foundation is mine now. Sebastian's out. Which means rebuilding from scratch. He stood and walked to the window, looking out at the dark highway. I need someone who understands how he operated. Someone who knows where the bodies are buried. Understanding dawned slowly. You want me to help you. I want you to run the legal division. He turned to face her. Rebuild what Sebastian destroyed. Make sure this never happens again. Renata's laugh came out bitter. I'm a fugitive waitress with a law degree I can't use. Who would trust me? I would. The simple statement hung in the air. And once the FBI clears you, everyone else will have to. You're assuming they'll clear me. The evidence is overwhelming. Sebastian created a paper trail that points directly at himself. Liam crossed his arms. But even if it takes time, I'm willing to wait. Why? The question burst out. Why invest this much in someone you met 3 days ago? He was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was careful. Because 3 days ago I watched you risk everything to help a stranger. That's rare. In my world, that's almost extinct. He paused. And because when you walked into that gala, I saw someone who'd been knocked down but refused to stay there. I respect that. The words settled into the space between them like a bridge being built. I can't promise I won't mess this up, Renata said quietly. I can't promise the FBI won't find complications, or that rebuilding will be easy. He stepped closer. But I can promise you won't face it alone. She looked up at him, this man who'd shown up with 100 bikers and somehow become her unlikely ally. The careful walls she'd built around herself cracked a little more. Okay, she said. I'll help you rebuild. Something shifted in his expression. Relief, maybe satisfaction. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. You might regret this. I doubt that. He glanced at his watch. It's late. You should rest. The FBI interview is at 9. I won't sleep. Try anyway. He moved toward the door, then paused. Renata? Yeah? What you did tonight took courage I'm not sure I could have managed. His gray eyes held hers. Whatever happens next, remember that. He left before she could respond. Renata sat in the sudden silence, turning the business card over in her hands. Margaret Chen. A real lawyer. A real chance. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Your mother is asking for you. Sunrise Care Facility. Her heart stopped. She'd been so focused on Sebastian, she'd almost forgotten the threat against Martha. Another text appeared. Don't worry, she's safe. Friends are watching. Marcus, the Iron Saints. Liam's promise of protection hadn't been empty. Renata set down the phone and walked to the window. In the parking lot below, she could see 2 motorcycles positioned strategically. Guards she hadn't asked for, but desperately needed. For 3 years, she'd survived alone. Now, suddenly, she had allies. The unfamiliarity of it was almost as frightening as the loneliness had been. But as she watched the guards keep vigil through the November night, Renata felt something she'd thought was lost forever. Hope. It was fragile, uncertain, and terrifying. But it was there. And for tonight, that was enough. The Hotel Mirage conference room held 300 seats. Every single one was filled. Renata stood backstage, listening to the murmur of voices beyond the curtain. Journalists, bloggers, former foundation donors, legal experts, all waiting to hear Sebastian Cole's side of the story. They were about to get something very different. You don't have to do this. Liam adjusted his tie, his usual leather jacket replaced by another impeccable suit. I can present the evidence myself. No. Renata's hands were steady as she checked the presentation file one more time. I need to do this. For everyone he hurt. The FBI interview that morning had lasted 4 hours. Margaret Chen had been brilliant, sharp, strategic, protective. The agents had promised a decision within 48 hours. But Renata couldn't wait. Not when Sebastian was already spinning the narrative. 5 minutes, a production assistant called. Liam touched her arm gently. I'll be right there. Front row. She managed a small smile. Thank you. The lights dimmed. The moderator walked on stage to applause. Ladies and gentlemen, we're here to address recent allegations against the Cole and Donovan Foundation. We've received a last-minute request from someone with relevant information. The moderator paused. Please welcome Renata Reyes. Confused whispers erupted. Renata walked on stage, spotlights hitting her face. She found Liam in the front row. His steady gaze anchored her. Good morning, she said into the microphone. 3 years ago, I was an attorney specializing in corporate fraud detection. I was also naive enough to trust my mentor with my research. She clicked the remote. The screen behind her lit up with her Columbia Law graduation photo. That mentor was Sebastian Cole. He took my work on identifying embezzlement schemes and used it to build his own. Financial documents appeared. These are foundation accounts. Notice the pattern of withdrawals every 3rd Friday, always under $10,000 to avoid federal reporting. The audience leaned forward. This is classic structuring, a technique I documented in my thesis. Sebastian learned it from me, then used it while framing me for the crimes he was committing. Why should we believe you? Someone called out. You're a fugitive. I was a fugitive, because I ran instead of fighting false charges. She advanced the slides. But here's what I didn't run from. Evidence. Email chains filled the screen. Sebastian's name topped every message. These emails detail shell companies, Acacia Holdings, Meridian Trust, Sunset Development Corp. Her voice strengthened, all receiving foundation funds meant for education and legal aid. She could see Sebastian in the third row now, his face red. $23 million, diverted over 5 years, while families waited for help that never came. This is defamation, Sebastian stood. Those documents are fabricated. Then explain this. Renata clicked again. A video played. Sebastian's younger face filled the screen. The beauty of Renata's system is that it shows exactly what investigators look for, which means we know what to avoid. As long as we stay under the reporting thresholds, we're invisible. An off-camera voice. And if anyone asks questions, Sebastian's smile was cold. We blame the person who designed the detection system. Who would suspect her? It's perfect misdirection. The conference room exploded. Shouts, questions, camera flashes. Sebastian's lawyer grabbed his arm. That video is edited, out of context. The FBI has the full recording, Renata said calmly, along with 53 others documenting your fraud. You recorded everything, Sebastian. You were so confident you kept evidence of your own crimes. 2 federal agents appeared at the doors. Sebastian's face drained of color. This is entrapment. Sebastian Cole, the lead agent, interrupted. You're under arrest for embezzlement, wire fraud, money laundering, and obstruction of justice. The room fell silent. Sebastian's lawyer stepped back. Reporters surged forward. The man who'd destroyed her life realized his was ending. Their eyes met across the chaos. You can't prove intent, he said desperately. Your own words prove intent. She gestured to the frozen video. You planned this. You framed me. And you documented every step. The agents moved forward. Sebastian stumbled back. I'm a philanthropist. I help people. You helped yourself. Renata's voice was quiet but carried. To money meant for people who had nothing. To my research. To my reputation. I made you. Sebastian hissed as the agents reached him. You were nothing before me. No. She stepped closer to the stage edge. You made me think I was nothing. There's a difference. And I finally understand it. The agents handcuffed him. The click echoed through the room. As they led him toward the exit, Sebastian looked back one final time. Just a man who'd gambled everything and lost. The doors closed. Renata stood alone at the podium, 300 faces staring in stunned silence. Then someone started clapping. Liam, standing in the front row, applauding steadily. Others joined. Within seconds, the entire room was on its feet. Renata's vision blurred. The sound washed over her. Vindication, recognition, justice. She'd spent 3 years invisible. Today, she was finally seen. The hospital room smelled of antiseptic and flowers. Martha Reyes sat propped against pillows, oxygen tubes beneath her nose, watching news coverage on the mounted television. Dramatic testimony from Renata Reyes, who provided evidence leading to the arrest. Renata stood in the doorway, uncertain. She hadn't seen her mother in person for 3 years. Martha turned and saw her. Her face crumpled. Mija. Renata crossed the room and wrapped her arms around her mother, careful of the IV lines. I'm sorry, Renata whispered. I'm so sorry I left. No. Martha's thin hands gripped her tightly. You survived. That's what matters. They held each other while the news played softly. Through the window, Las Vegas sprawled in afternoon sunlight. Finally, Martha pulled back, studying her daughter's face. You look tired. I am tired. Renata sank into the visitor's chair. But it's over now. Is it? Her mother's gaze was knowing. The FBI are dropping the charges. Margaret Chen called an hour ago. Renata still couldn't quite believe it. Sebastian's confession was enough. They determined I was a victim, not a perpetrator. Martha's eyes filled with tears. Gracias a Dios. 3 years of being called a criminal, erased in a single afternoon. Not erased. Martha touched her hand. Those years happened. They changed you. Into what? The question came out small. I don't know who I am anymore. You're the woman who survived, who kept evidence when it would have been easier to destroy it, who walked into that conference room today. Martha's voice was firm. That's who you are. A knock interrupted them. Liam stood in the hallway holding a modest bouquet. "I'm sorry to interrupt, I just wanted to check." He stopped. "Come in," Martha said. "You must be the man with the motorcycles." A smile tugged at Liam's mouth. "Guilty. My daughter tells me you've been helping her." Martha studied him with a mother's sharp assessment. "Why?" "Mama," Renata protested. "It's fair." Liam set the flowers down and stood at a respectful distance. "Your daughter saved my brother's life. She showed courage I rarely see. I wanted to help her get justice. And now that she has it, now I hope she'll help me rebuild what Sebastian destroyed." Martha's eyes narrowed. "As an employee? As a partner?" Liam's gaze moved to Renata. "If she wants it." The offer hung in the air. "I don't need saving," Renata said quietly. "I know." Liam's voice was equally soft. "I'm not offering rescue. I'm offering a job to someone whose expertise I respect." He pulled out a folder. Inside were organizational charts, financial projections, and a job description for Director of Legal Oversight. The salary made her breath catch. "This is too much," she said. "It's what the position is worth. You'd be responsible for redistributing $20 million, building systems to prevent future fraud, overseeing legal aid programs that actually help people." He paused. "Unless you'd prefer to go back to pouring coffee. Don't be condescending. I'm being honest." His expression softened. "You have a choice now, Renata. For the first time in 3 years." Martha squeezed her daughter's hand. "What do you want, mija?" What did she want? 3 years ago, she'd wanted justice and vindication. She had both now, but the old life was gone. Maybe she could build something better. "I want to help people," Renata said slowly. "The way I originally intended when I became a lawyer." "Then do it." Liam's voice was gentle but firm. "On your terms this time." She looked at the folder again, at the structure that would require her expertise, her vigilance, her hard-won understanding. "Okay," she said. "I'll do it." Relief crossed Liam's face. "Good. We start Monday. That's 3 days away. You need rest first, both of you." He moved toward the door. "I'll have security outside until your mother's discharged." "That's not necessary. Sebastian's in custody, but he had associates. Until we're certain, humor me." His tone left no room for argument. After Liam left, Martha turned to her daughter with raised eyebrows. "That man is in love with you." "Mama, no. We just met a week ago. I may be sick, but I'm not blind." Martha's smile was knowing. "He looks at you the way your father looked at me. It's not like that. Wealthy, handsome, protective, offering you partnership." Martha counted on her fingers. "Terrible combination." "Despite everything," Renata laughed. "You're impossible. I'm a mother." Martha's expression grew serious. "That man showed up when you needed help. He kept his promises. Those are rare qualities." "I know." Renata looked out the window. "I'm just not ready for anything beyond professional." "That's okay too. But don't close yourself off. You've been running for so long." Martha settled back. Maybe it's time to feel something other than fear. As her mother dozed, Renata sat in the quiet room and felt the weight of victory. She'd won. Sebastian was in custody. Her name was cleared. She had a job, a future. So why did she still feel like she was waiting for something to go wrong? Maybe because 3 years of running didn't disappear overnight. Or maybe because Liam had looked at her like she mattered. And that was the most terrifying thing of all. The Nevada desert gave way to something Renata never thought she'd see again. An office with her name on the door. The Cole and Donovan Foundation had been stripped to its bones and rebuilt. New name, new board, new mission. The Dusty Road Foundation, Liam had called it, honoring the place where everything changed. Renata stood in her office on the 3rd floor, looking out at downtown Las Vegas. 6 months had passed since Sebastian's arrest. 6 months of depositions, audits, and slowly learning to breathe again. "You're here early." Liam appeared in the doorway with 2 coffee cups. The sight had become familiar, comforting even. Couldn't sleep. She accepted the cup gratefully. "First day nerves." "You've been working here for 3 months already." "As a consultant. Today I'm officially Director of Legal Oversight." She gestured to the small bronze nameplate on her desk. "It feels different." "Good different, or terrifying different?" "Both." She smiled despite herself. "Mostly terrifying." Liam leaned against the doorframe, watching her with that steady attention she'd come to recognize. He'd kept every promise he made in that motel room. Protection for Martha. A good lawyer. A partnership built on respect, not rescue. Somewhere along the way, Professional respect had started feeling like something more. She pushed the thought away. "The first group arrives in an hour," Liam said. "Are you ready?" Renata looked at the files on her desk. 7 women, all recently released from prison, all serving time for financial crimes they'd been coerced into by partners or employers. Cases that reminded her uncomfortably of her own. "I'm ready," she said. The conference room filled gradually. The women ranged from 23 to 56, their expressions guarded in the way Renata recognized people who'd learned the hard way that hope was dangerous. "Good morning," Renata began, standing at the head of the table. "My name is Renata Reyes. 3 years ago, I was framed for embezzlement by my mentor. I spent those years working as a waitress, hiding, convinced the system had failed me completely." The women's attention sharpened. "I'm not here to tell you the system works. We all know it doesn't. Not fairly, not for everyone." She met each woman's gaze. "But I'm here to tell you that sometimes, with the right help and evidence, we can make it work for us." She explained the program: legal aid, job training, financial literacy, housing assistance, everything designed to prevent the cycle that kept women trapped. A woman named Diana raised her hand tentatively. "Why would you help us? What do you get out of it?" "Honestly, peace." Renata's voice softened. "For 3 years I survived. Now I want to do more than that. I want to help people the way I wish someone had helped me." "Did anyone help you?" another woman asked. Renata glanced at Liam, who stood quietly in the corner. "Eventually, when I was ready to accept it." The meeting lasted 2 hours. By the end, the women's guarded expressions had shifted slightly. Not quite trust, but possibility. After they left, Renata sagged into her chair. "You were incredible," Liam said. "I was honest. There's a difference. Not much of one." He sat across from her. "They saw themselves in you. That matters." "I hope so." She rubbed her temples. "This is harder than I thought it would be." "Rebuilding always is." They sat in comfortable silence. Through the windows, Las Vegas sparkled in afternoon sun, a city built on second chances and reinvention. "Martha's coming to the opening celebration tomorrow," Renata said. "She's been sewing uniforms for the volunteers." "How's she feeling?" "Better. The new treatment is working." Renata's throat tightened. "I can actually pay for her care now. That still feels surreal." "You earned it." "Did I?" The question burst out before she could stop it. "Sometimes I feel like I'm playing dress up. Like any minute someone will realize I'm just a waitress pretending to be a lawyer again." Liam leaned forward, his expression serious. "You were never just a waitress. You were an attorney surviving impossible circumstances. There's no pretending involved. You sound very certain." "I am." His gray eyes held hers. "I've watched you build this program from nothing. I've seen you work 18-hour days making sure every detail is perfect. I've seen you fight for women who remind you of your own pain." He paused. "That's not pretending. That's courage." The intensity in his voice made her chest ache. She wanted to believe him, wanted to accept that maybe she deserved this second chance. "Thank you," she said quietly, "for believing in me when I couldn't believe in myself. Always." The single word carried weight beyond its simplicity. A knock interrupted the moment. Kyle, Liam's 16-year-old godson, poked his head in. "Sorry to interrupt. The volunteers are here for training. We'll be right there." Liam stood, offering Renata his hand. She took it, letting him pull her to her feet. His hand was warm and steady, and he held on perhaps a moment longer than necessary. They spent the afternoon training volunteers, Iron Saints members who'd traded leather for polo shirts, former clients who wanted to give back, community members who believed in the mission. Martha arrived toward evening, arms full of embroidered uniforms. "Coraje es la forma más pura de la verdad." The stitching read, "Courage is the purest form of truth." "It's perfect, Mama." Renata hugged her carefully. "You're perfect." Martha pulled back, studying her daughter's face. "You're happy. Finally. I'm getting there." "Good." Martha glanced at Liam across the room. "And him?" "We're colleagues." "Mija, please, I'm old, not blind." Renata felt heat rise to her cheeks. "It's complicated. Love usually is." Martha patted her hand. "But it's also usually worth it." As the sun set over the desert, Renata stood on the foundation's balcony and watched the city lights flicker to life. Somewhere out there, women were struggling the way she had. But now, at least, there was somewhere they could turn. She'd survived 3 years of darkness. Now she was finally building something that mattered. The door opened behind her. She didn't need to turn to know it was Liam. "Quite a day," he said, joining her at the railing. "Quite a 6 months. Any regrets?" She considered the question seriously. About exposing Sebastian? No. About running instead of fighting 3 years ago? She paused. Maybe, but I can't change the past. Only build a better future. Is that what we're doing? I hope so. He turned to face her. "Renata, Her phone buzzed. A text from Margaret Chen. "Sebastian's sentencing tomorrow. Thought you'd want to know." The moment shattered. Liam saw her expression change. "What is it?" "Sebastian's sentencing is tomorrow." She stared at the screen. 15 to 20 years, Margaret thinks. "Are you going?" "I don't know." Her hands trembled slightly. "Part of me wants to see it. Part of me wants to never think about him again." "Then don't decide tonight." Liam's voice was gentle. "Sleep on it. Whatever you choose, I'll support it." She looked up at him, this man who'd shown up with 100 bikers and somehow become her anchor. "Why are you so good to me?" The question came out vulnerable, uncertain. "Because you deserve good things." He said it like it was simple, obvious. "And because somewhere along the way, helping you became the most important thing I've ever done." The words hung between them, heavy with meaning neither was quite ready to name. "I should go," Renata said. "Big day tomorrow." "Right, of course." Liam stepped back, professional distance reasserting itself. "I'll see you in the morning." As she drove home through the desert night, Renata couldn't stop replaying his words. The most important thing I've ever done. She'd spent 3 years afraid to want anything beyond survival. Maybe it was time to want more. The courthouse steps were crowded with reporters. Renata stood at the edge of the crowd, watching them set up cameras and adjust microphones, preparing for Sebastian's sentencing. She'd decided to come. Not for closure. She'd learned that closure was overrated. But for witness. To see the end of the story she'd helped write. Liam stood beside her, a quiet presence in the chaos. He'd offered to come without her asking, and she'd been grateful enough not to refuse. "You okay?" he asked. "Ask me in an hour." They climbed the courthouse steps together. Inside, the marble halls echoed with footsteps and whispered conversations. Renata had spent 3 years avoiding places like this, terrified of being recognized and arrested. Now she walked in freely, her name cleared, her reputation restored. The courtroom was smaller than she expected. Sebastian sat at the defense table in an orange jumpsuit, his expensive suits and practiced charm stripped away. He looked smaller somehow, diminished. Their eyes met across the room. He looked away first. Victory, Renata discovered, didn't taste the way she'd imagined. "All rise." The judge entered, a stern woman in her 60s who'd reportedly been furious when she learned about the scope of Sebastian's fraud. The proceedings began. Evidence presented, arguments made, character witnesses called. Renata listened to people describe Sebastian as a manipulator, a con artist, a man who'd betrayed everyone who trusted him. She'd known all that, but hearing it stated officially in a court of law made something in her chest finally loosen. "Mrs. Reyes," the judge said suddenly, "I understand you're present today. Would you like to make a statement?" Renata's breath caught. Margaret had mentioned this possibility, but she hadn't prepared anything. She stood slowly. "Yes, Your Honor." Walking to the front felt like moving through water. Sebastian watched her now, his expression unreadable. 3 years ago, she began, Sebastian Cole destroyed my life. He stole my research, framed me for his crimes, and forced me into hiding. I lost my career, my reputation, my sense of self. Her voice remained steady. For a long time, I hated him for that. Sebastian's jaw tightened. But standing here today, I realized something. She turned to face him directly. "You took 3 years from me. You took my job, my credentials, my freedom. But you didn't take everything." She paused. "You didn't take my ability to help people. You didn't take my integrity. You didn't take the part of me that believes in justice, even when the system fails. I survived you, Sebastian, and now I'm building something better than anything you ever created." Her voice strengthened. "So yes, I hope you serve every day of your sentence, not for revenge, but because people need to see that fraud has consequences, that truth matters, that victims can become victors." She returned to her seat, her hands shaking with adrenaline. Liam's hand found hers under the table, warm and grounding. She didn't pull away. The judge delivered the sentence. 18 years, with possibility of parole after 12. restitution of $23 million, permanent ban from practicing law or serving on any non-profit board. Sebastian's face crumbled. His lawyers tried to console him as guards prepared to lead him away. As he passed Renata's row, he stopped. "I'm sorry." The words were quiet, almost inaudible. Renata looked at him, really looked at him, and saw not a monster, but a man who'd made terrible choices and would spend the next 12 years paying for them. "I know," she said simply. It wasn't forgiveness, but it was acknowledgement. As Sebastian was led away, the courtroom emptied. Renata sat in the sudden quiet, processing. "How do you feel?" Liam asked. "Tired?" She managed a smile, but lighter somehow. "That's closure. I thought closure was overrated. Maybe I was wrong." They left the courthouse together, emerging into bright November sunlight. The reporters had moved on, chasing other stories. The world continued, indifferent to one man's fall. "I have something to show you," Liam said, "if you're up for it." "What is it?" "Surprise." "Trust me?" The word hung between them. Trust, that fragile thing she'd thought was broken forever. "Yes," she said, "I trust you." They drove into the desert, past the Dusty Road Diner, now renovated and serving as the Foundation's community center, until they reached a ridge overlooking the valley. Liam parked and led her to the edge. Below, the Foundation's new building rose against the horizon. Solar panels glinted. Gardens bloomed. People moved between structures, women in Martha's embroidered uniforms, volunteers carrying supplies, children playing in a courtyard. "It's beautiful," Renata whispered. "It's yours." Liam turned to face her. "All of it. The program, the mission, the future. You built this. We built this. I provided funding. You provided the heart." He reached into his jacket and pulled out a small box. Renata's breath stopped. "Before you panic," Liam said quickly, "this isn't what you think." "Well, it is, but—" He stopped, took a breath. "I'm doing this badly." "Doing what?" He opened the box. Inside was a simple silver ring with a small diamond, elegant, understated, perfect. "6 months ago, you saved my brother's life with $8 and compassion. You could have walked away, but you didn't. That told me everything I needed to know about your character." His voice was steady, despite the emotion in his eyes. "Since then, I've watched you rebuild your life, fight for justice, and help women who remind you of your own pain. I've watched you be brave when you were terrified. I've watched you trust when trust didn't come easily. Liam, let me finish." He smiled. "I'm not offering this because of guilt or obligation or because I think you need saving. I'm offering this because somewhere along the way, helping you stopped being a mission and became the most important part of my life." He paused. "Because I love you, Renata, and I want to build the rest of our future together." The desert wind carried the scent of sage and possibility. "I don't need rescue," Renata said, her voice trembling. "I know. You never did." He took her hand. "But maybe you need a partner, someone who sees your strength instead of your scars, someone who believes in you as much as you believe in others." Tears blurred her vision. "I'm still figuring out who I am." "Then let's figure it out together." She looked at the ring, then at Liam, then at the Foundation building rising from the desert below. 6 months ago, she'd been invisible, broken, afraid. Now she was seen, healing, brave. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes? Yes." Louder now, certain. "Yes, I'll marry you." Liam's smile was brilliant as he slipped the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly, like it had been made for her. Maybe it had been. He kissed her then, soft and gentle, with the desert wind swirling around them and the Foundation, their Foundation, standing as proof that broken things could be rebuilt into something beautiful. When they finally pulled apart, Renata was laughing and crying simultaneously. "What's funny?" Liam asked. 6 months ago, I was serving coffee in a diner, hiding from my past." She held up her hand, watching the diamond catch sunlight. "Now I'm engaged to a millionaire biker with a heart of gold. It's absurd. Life tends to be." He pulled her close. "But I'm grateful for every absurd moment that led us here." Below, the Foundation waited, full of women rebuilding their lives, volunteers offering hope, and possibility blooming in the Nevada desert. Renata had survived 3 years of darkness. Now she was finally, truly, living, and it was beautiful. 9 months after Sebastian's sentencing, the Dusty Road Foundation had grown beyond anything Renata imagined possible. She stood in the main hall of their third location, Phoenix, Arizona, watching volunteers set up chairs for the evening's workshop. The space hummed with purposeful energy. Women learning computer skills in one corner, legal consultations in another, childcare services running smoothly in the converted storefront next door. "We're at capacity again," Kyle said, approaching with a tablet full of applications. At 17, he'd become an invaluable part of the operation, organizing volunteers, managing schedules, connecting with younger participants in ways the adult staff couldn't. "How many on the waiting list?" Renata asked. 43 in Phoenix, 62 in Las Vegas, 27 in Reno. He scrolled through the numbers. "We're going to need another location. Or we need to expand the existing ones." Liam appeared from the office, blueprints under his arm. "I've been talking to architects about adding second floors to Vegas and Reno." Renata studied the blueprints he spread across the table. The designs were thoughtful. More classroom space, private counseling rooms, a commercial kitchen for job training. "This is ambitious," she said. "So were you when you started this." Liam's smile was warm. "The demand is there. We have the funding. Why not?" Because growth meant visibility and old habits died hard. Part of Renata still expected someone to realize she didn't deserve this. The success, the respect, the love. As if reading her thoughts, Liam touched her hand gently. The engagement ring caught the light. "You're doing it again," he said quietly. "Doing what?" "Doubting yourself." His voice held no judgment, only understanding. "Every time we grow, you question whether you deserve it." She wanted to deny it, but couldn't. 3 years of hiding leaves marks. "I know." He squeezed her hand. "But you're not hiding anymore. You're leading. There's a difference." A commotion at the entrance interrupted them. Martha entered with her arms full of fabric, followed by 3 women carrying boxes. "Mama, what is all this?" "New uniforms." Martha set down her load with satisfaction. "Business is good, so I hired help. Meet Rosa, Chen, and Patricia, my sewing circle." The 3 women smiled shyly. Renata recognized them immediately. Former clients, now volunteers, now employees. "You started a business?" Renata couldn't keep the surprise from her voice. "Why not? You did." Martha's expression was proud. "Besides, these uniforms need to be made by people who understand what they represent. We all do." Rosa stepped forward, holding up a completed shirt. The embroidery was exquisite. Martha's signature phrase, "Coraje es la forma más pura de la verdad," curved across the back, but now with additional details. Small symbols of hope, a rising sun, an open door, hands reaching toward each other. "It's beautiful," Renata whispered. "We added our own touches," Chen explained. "Each symbol represents part of the journey. Darkness to light, closed to open, alone to together." Renata's throat tightened. These women had taken Martha's vision and made it their own, transformed it into something even more meaningful. "How much do we owe you?" Liam asked. Martha waved dismissively. "You give us purpose and paychecks. We give you uniforms. Fair trade." "Mama, don't argue with your mother." Martha's tone brooked no disagreement. "Besides, we're family now. Family helps family." The evening workshop began an hour later. 40 women filled the chairs, some new, some returning, all carrying stories of survival and struggle. Renata stood at the front, no longer nervous like those first uncertain days. She'd learned that vulnerability was strength, that sharing her story gave others permission to share theirs. "Good evening," she began. "For those who are new, I'm Renata Reyes. 4 years ago, I was framed for crimes I didn't commit. I spent 3 years hiding, working minimum wage, convinced I'd never practice law again." A young woman in the front row leaned forward, recognition in her eyes. "I'm not here to tell you the system is fair. It's not. We all know that." Renata's voice strengthened. "But I'm here to tell you that with evidence, support, and courage, we can make it work for us. Not easily, not quickly, but possible." She talked about Sebastian's sentencing, about watching justice finally arrive. She talked about the foundation, about rebuilding trust in herself and others. She talked about Liam, how accepting help wasn't weakness but wisdom. During the Q&A session, a woman named Carmen raised her hand. "How do you stop being angry?" "I'm so angry all the time at what they did to me." Renata understood that anger intimately. It had sustained her through 3 years of hiding, then threatened to consume her when she finally stopped running. "Honestly, I'm still working on it." She sat on the edge of the table, more conversational now. "Some days I'm furious at the years I lost. Other days I'm grateful for what I gained, perspective, empathy, strength I didn't know I had. Does it get easier? Different. Not easier, but different. She paused, choosing words carefully. I used to think closure meant not feeling anything about what happened. Now I realize it means feeling everything. Anger, grief, hope, and choosing to move forward anyway. Carmen nodded slowly, processing. After the workshop ended, participants lingered, sharing stories, exchanging phone numbers, building the networks that would sustain them through difficult days ahead. Renata watched from the doorway, feeling Liam's presence beside her before he spoke. "You're good at this," he said. "I had good teachers." She leaned against him slightly. "And a good partner. Speaking of which," he pulled out his phone, showing her a message. "The architect can meet next week about the expansion, and I got a call from a foundation in Chicago. They want to replicate our model." Chicago? The scope of it overwhelmed her. "That's big, I know." He pocketed the phone. "But necessary. There are women in every city who need what we're offering. Why shouldn't they have it? Because I'm still figuring out how to run 3 locations. Then we'll figure out 4 together." His voice was patient. "Renata, you've built something remarkable. It's okay to let it grow." She looked at the women still gathered in small groups, at Kyle coordinating rides home, at Martha and her sewing circle packing up uniforms. A year ago, this hadn't existed. Now it was changing lives. "Okay," she said. "Let's talk to Chicago." Liam's smile was brilliant. He kissed her temple gently. "That's my girl." As they locked up for the evening, Renata paused at the threshold. The Phoenix location sat in a neighborhood that reminded her of where she'd hidden, working class, resilient, overlooked. But now it held possibility instead of desperation, hope instead of fear. "What are you thinking?" Liam asked. "That maybe Sebastian did me a favor." The words surprised her even as she spoke them. "If he hadn't destroyed my old life, I never would have built this new one." "That's incredibly gracious." "Not gracious, just honest." She locked the door and turned to face him. "I loved being an attorney, but I was doing it for prestige and validation. Now I'm doing it because it matters, because these women matter. You matter too. I'm starting to believe that." She took his hand, their fingers intertwining naturally. "Thanks to you." They drove back toward Las Vegas through the desert night, the road familiar now instead of frightening. In the distance, the foundation's lights glowed, a beacon in the darkness. Renata had spent 3 years invisible, hiding from a past she couldn't escape. Now she was building a future she couldn't wait to see. And somehow, impossibly, she was happy. The sun rose over Nevada like liquid gold, painting the desert in shades of amber and rose. Renata stood on the newly renovated porch of the original Dusty Road Diner, watching the transformation with wonder. What had been a struggling roadside restaurant was now the foundation's flagship location, community center, legal aid clinic, job training facility, and symbol of everything they'd built. The grand reopening was scheduled for noon. Already cars dotted the parking lot. News vans set up cameras. County officials confirmed attendance. The governor had sent a congratulatory message. A year and a half ago, Renata had been invisible here, pouring coffee and hiding from her past. Now she was being celebrated. "You're nervous," Martha observed, appearing beside her with 2 cups of coffee. At 63, her health had stabilized. The new treatments, combined with less stress and more purpose, had given her renewed energy. Terrified, Renata admitted, "What if I mess up the speech?" "Then you'll be human." Martha handed her a cup. "People don't need perfect, mija. They need real." Through the windows, Renata could see the interior, completely renovated, but retaining the diner's original character. The counter where she'd worked remained, now serving as a reception desk. Booths had been converted to consultation spaces. The kitchen trained women in culinary skills. Kyle emerged from inside, adjusting his tie. 5 news crews confirmed. Phoenix and Reno are streaming live. We're trending on social media. Dusty Road Foundation is number 3 nationally. Number 3? Renata's eyebrows rose. Behind a celebrity wedding and a political scandal. Pretty good company. Kyle grinned. Liam wants you inside for sound check. The main hall was transformed. Rows of chairs faced a small stage. Banners displayed the foundation's mission and success statistics. 400 women helped. 85 finding full-time employment. 43 completing legal aid cases. 12 starting their own businesses. Liam stood at the podium, testing the microphone. He looked up as Renata entered. and his expression softened in the way that still made her breath catch. "There you are." He stepped down to meet her. "Ready?" "No, but I'm doing it anyway." "That's very on brand for you." He kissed her forehead gently. "You're going to be brilliant." At 11:45, guests began arriving. Former clients, current participants, volunteers, donors, Iron Saints members in their dress leather. Diana, the woman who'd asked why Renata would help them, now worked as a paralegal in the Las Vegas office. Carmen, who'd asked about anger, was studying to retake her teaching certification exam. Sebastian's name was never mentioned. His legacy was being actively erased by the good work happening in spite of him. At noon exactly, Liam took the stage. "Welcome to the Dusty Road Foundation's grand reopening." His voice carried authority and warmth. 18 months ago, this diner was where I met someone who would change my life and the lives of hundreds of women across 3 states. He told the story simply: Renata saving Marcus, the foundation's discovery of Sebastian's fraud, the choice to rebuild rather than abandon the mission. But this isn't my story to tell. It belongs to the woman who had the courage to expose corruption, the wisdom to help others while still healing herself, and the grace to turn pain into purpose. He gestured toward the side entrance. "Renata Reyes." Applause erupted as Renata walked on stage. The sound washed over her, validation, recognition, belonging. She gripped the podium, looking out at faces that represented her journey. Martha in the front row, tears already streaming. Kyle holding a phone to capture everything. Diana, Carmen, and dozens of other women whose lives had intersected with hers. "Thank you," she began, voice steady despite nerves. "Standing here today feels surreal. 4 years ago, I was a promising attorney. 3 years ago, I was a fugitive waitress. Today, I'm—" She paused, searching for the right words. "Today, I'm someone who learned that survival isn't enough. We're meant to thrive." She talked about the night Marcus crashed outside the diner, about spending her last $8 on his survival. She talked about fear, hiding, the weight of carrying evidence that could destroy or vindicate. "I could have destroyed that pen drive, disappeared completely, lived the rest of my life invisible." Her voice strengthened. "But I didn't, because somewhere deep down, I still believed truth mattered. Justice mattered. People mattered." She gestured to the renovated space around them. "This foundation exists because one person showed compassion to a stranger, because another person believed in second chances, because a community decided broken things could be rebuilt into something beautiful." The applause was thunderous. After the speech, the celebration continued. Food, music, tours of the facility. Renata found herself pulled in dozens of directions, thanking donors, hugging former clients, posing for photographs. As evening approached and guests began departing, she slipped outside to the porch. The desert stretched before her, vast and indifferent and somehow comforting. Liam found her there, as she'd known he would. "Hiding from your own party?" he teased gently. "Just breathing." She leaned against the railing. "It's overwhelming." "Good overwhelming?" "The best kind." She turned to face him. "Thank you for believing in me when I couldn't believe in myself. Always." He pulled her close and they stood watching the sunset over the desert, the same desert where she'd hidden, survived, and eventually thrived. In the parking lot, Martha supervised the volunteers packing up. Kyle coordinated rides. Diana chatted with a reporter about her journey from client to employee. The Dusty Road Foundation hummed with life and purpose. "I love you," Renata said suddenly. Liam's arms tightened around her. "I love you too. When's the wedding?" "Whenever you want." Though Martha's been dropping hints about spring. Renata laughed. "Spring sounds perfect." They stood together as stars began appearing overhead, the same stars that had watched her struggle through 3 years of darkness. But now they witnessed something different. Triumph, love, home. The past would always be part of her story. Sebastian's betrayal, the years of hiding, the fear and loneliness. But it wasn't the whole story anymore. Now there was this, a foundation helping hundreds of women, a partner who saw her strength instead of her scars, a mother who sewed hope into every uniform, a future bright with possibility. Renata had spent 3 years surviving. Now she was finally, completely, beautifully alive. The desert wind carried the scent of sage and second chances. Inside the diner-turned foundation, lights glowed warm against the gathering darkness. Truth had found its home in the desert, and so had she.